register. Will your Bureau of Motor Vehicle cross-reference eventually pick them up?
If they have a driver's license and they follow the process, which is a self-reported process, that's how we identify these individuals. So, I mean, clearly they're not trying to hide the fact that they aren't citizens because they're using a BMV database and reporting themselves. But the Social Security number, if you use that to register to vote, the BMV wouldn't have that. The only people that know this, because understand, we have their Social Security numbers, or at least their last 4 digits, if that's what they did. It's in our database. We just don't know that they aren't citizens. So they're there. We have all the same information. What we need the federal government to do is just give us the names, the dates of birth, and the last 4 digits. Then we'll match that up against our statewide database. That will pump out a list. It may be a big list, it may be a small list of individuals who aren't citizens who are using Social Security numbers to register to vote and potentially cast ballots. And that's how we would do it. And it wouldn't, that's the easiest way to do it. It causes no burden on any voter. It would be something that we would solve and hopefully prevent one of those individuals from going from somebody who gets a letter from us saying, oops, you're registered, you shouldn't be, to somebody that gets referred to law enforcement because they cast a ballot.
So when someone registers with their Social Security number, how is that verified now that they are an eligible voter?
You would go in and you just match their data. I mean, everybody who has that information, we would do that through the local boards of elections. They would match that data, but you don't know that those last 4 digits that they're using make them that they're eligible, because they understand, they sign it. So that's not used to determine whether the voter is eligible? No.
Is there information on there that says, like, check, I am a citizen?
There is a box that says that if you're not a citizen, that you're not eligible to vote, and you sign that. Okay. It's on the form. People, it's on there. That's why you sign, because you're attesting in signing that you are eligible. So that's the violation of the law there, because it's a false claim. But again, a lot of times people don't know what they're signing, particularly if they're registered by a third-party individual. I mean, I've heard stories from folks who are saying, well, they thought that it would help them become a citizen if they voted. That they thought that it would improve their chances of getting their applications approved. There are 436 people we've identified. There are 436 different stories. Clearly, there are some of them where people just violated the law and knew that they were, but there are also many that didn't know.
So these 145 that registered in 27 that cast, they're different from the ones you found in 2013?
Yes, they're different. We just have more data, and so the more data we have, the more cross-matching we can do, and the more of these we can identify. That's why if we get this access to the Social Security numbers, we know that there are more out there. We just cannot identify them. And again, I will reiterate, I don't know how big that problem is. I don't know if it's a big one. I don't know if it's a small one. No matter where you come out on this, whether you're for the President's executive action or you're against it, you should be for what we're asking for, because it will clear up the matter once and for all for everybody, so that we can move past rhetoric and we know what the facts are, and we can solve the problem, and that we don't have that the problem goes away.
What you're asking for from the administration, is that something that can be done administratively, or do you have to have an act of Congress to give you that permission?
Well, we believe it can be done administratively. This should not be a hard thing to do. I mean, our IT department can do it in the Secretary of State's office, so I'm sure that the federal government can do it.
You've received no reply?
I have not, and we're gonna follow back up with this new information with the White House to let them know that we really would like their help. We want to solve this in 2015. Let's not let this trickle into 2016 and become a distraction. That's why we're coming out and trying to get this resolved now, so that there doesn't need to be any finger pointing. There don't need to be any accusations. Everybody can approach this from a fact point of view, and resolve the matter.
How many have gone to the AG, or how many have been referred to the AG's office?
Everybody who casts a ballot gets referred. And we do refer people who do not respond to the letters that we send.
So is that 27 people in this new review got referred to the AG?
27 of the 27 will get referred.
Okay.
And we send the others a letter asking them to remove themselves from the voter rolls.
And if they don't remove themselves from the voter
If they don't respond, they don't remove themselves. Because understand, we don't have the authority to remove them. They have to remove themselves. I know that sounds, that doesn't seem right, but we can't remove them. And we also want to make sure we're not making a mistake. Because sometimes there is an overlap in time where an individual goes from non-citizen to citizen status, and they could actually have become, I think in 2 cases in our last round, 2 people actually had become citizens, and so we don't want to run the risk of disenfranchising somebody, those 2 people, by taking them off the rolls when they could very well have become eligible. So we take a high degree of caution. To not err on the side of protecting their right to vote rather than removing them from the rolls, and we ask them to remove themselves from the rolls, and then if we can't get a response from them, then we turn those over to law enforcement.
In the last review, how many were referred, and what was the status of those cases?
Matt will. I think I might have those stats here. We ended up. We have 96 of them canceled, 6 became naturalized citizens, 63 letters were returned undeliverable, and 109 additional were referred to the Attorney General that didn't respond to our letters we couldn't track down.
Were any of these people convicted or?
Yes, some of them have. A lot of that happens at the local level, so I don't have complete statistics. Some of them have been convicted, some of them have just had plea arrangements. There's a variety. I mean, the set of facts in each case dictates how they're treated.
You don't have a total convictions or anything?
I don't have a total number.
Do you know whether that Erie County case that you cited was one of those referred? And was that person denied because he now had a felony record because he voted?
Well, and Matt Damschroeder sitting back there, and you can clear this up if I get it wrong. They self-reported because the husband reported the wife because she had been rejected. Her citizenship had been rejected because she had voted. And so they went to the BOE to see if they could solve the problem. And there was no way to put the genie back in the bottle at that point. The law violation had occurred, and her citizenship application was denied. She was a Canadian citizen trying to become an American.
Do you know if either of them was convicted of voter fraud?
This happened yesterday or the day before, so this is a very fresh case. But I thought it was illustrative of the fact that sometimes, these things. I think a lot of times that some folks can think that these reviews come out of a sense of mean-spiritedness, and actually, this is not out of a sense of that. This is about helping people do things the right way. Because if you do it wrong and you want to become a citizen, you could be putting all that in jeopardy. And I believe that many of these folks, many of them don't know that they're breaking the law, and we can prevent that. We can prevent that from happening with the right kind of data.
Can you explain the self-reporting process through your or through the BMV? They say, hey, we know you're not a citizen, and that you also registered to vote. Will you send us back a letter confirming this? I mean, how does that work?
Let me walk through to make sure I'm answering your question. When a non-citizen goes to get a driver's license, they have to report they're not a citizen.
Yep.
You have to renew that driver's license annually.
Yep.
So we take the first report, then we look for election action in between, and then we take the second self-report. So if we have a bookend of someone self-reporting that they weren't a citizen, we can have a high degree of confidence, since it's their own testimony, that they didn't.
And that's when you send
And
the
then
letter.
that's when we do the report. We then will send them a letter But if they actually cast a ballot, then we refer them to law enforcement for further investigation and prosecution.
So that's a period of, what, 2 years or so for that to run
We've
its
done it,
course?
we've run the process over a course of 2 years to make sure that we don't make mistakes.
Do you have a breakdown of how many of these violations occurred in the 2014 election?
I don't know how many of them occurred just in the 2014 election. No, not off the top of my head.
Are there other irregularities that you found? I mean, was this in conjunction to the review that you did in the last
No,
election?
we
or
actually
was it
have
separate?
a separate review going on between all 88 boards of elections. We asked them to report all cases of irregularities, potential fraud. That review is going on right now, and we'll have that back. They can't do this. We are the only ones that have the relationship with the BMV that allows us to do this. They are doing their investigations at the local level, but we are the only ones that have the ability to do this because we have access to the BMV database and the statewide voter database. They do not have access to the BMV database.
How many voters are on rolls right now that got there just by reporting on the floor because of this?
I don't know that we even know that number. Because if we have both, we don't necessarily know whether they use a driver's license number or their last four to register.
Aren't you saying if they use the last four, I'm not saying you can't match any of those?
We can't now, no. We don't. I don't know the answer to that question, Daryl. I don't know that we can find the answer to that question. Matt, I see Matt shaking his head. Can we find the answer to that question?
Not unless the person has also obtained a driver's license with the BMV is the only way we can currently find out the person is a non-citizen.
So the people you're really worried about are people who don't have driver's licenses. That's the only group that you would not be able to check?
That's the universe that we're primarily concerned about. I'm not going to suggest that there's not some other way that you could have done it, because there might be. But for the most part, most people use the last four of their social security number or their driver's license number as a means for registering to vote. And for the purposes, say, of casting an absentee ballot, that's what we use. Those are if you ever get your absentee ballot by mail, you either have to put your driver's license number in or your last four of your social security as your unique identifier. And we just don't know. And for those who say it's not a big problem, well then great, give us the information and prove us that we were worried about nothing. But I don't know how big the problem is. I don't know how small it is. You know that we have a modest problem with just BMV data. You know that we've had 70 elections that have been decided by one voter tied. Thankfully, none of those have crossed yet, where an illegal voter and a vote in an election that was decided by one voter tied came together. But when you have that many, these things become potential problems, and we want everybody to know that we're trying to do everything we can to build a system where no illegal votes get cast and counted. And we also want to do it without making the voter have to bring a wallet full of documents to prove that we want to make that easy for them too. And we can do this if we just have access to the right information. And again, fulfilling our goal of making it easy to vote and hard to cheat. It's a simple message, and these are the things that you do to get you there.
Are you asking the feds only for the social security numbers of non-citizens, or the social security numbers of everybody?
We have just non-citizens who receive social security numbers, because that's the pathway that we cannot check. And understand, because when I was going through this the other day with somebody, they said, well, you're going to have well, we already have that information. We already have everybody that registered, we would already have it on file, their name, their date of birth, and their last four of the social security number. We just need to know who in that population also are in the population that receive social security numbers who aren't citizens. We'll match those. That'll give us a field of people, and then we'll follow up with them.